Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there. How you doing? I feel in a subdued state today. I'm not sure why, but here I am, subdued. Perhaps in the course of the next 60 minutes, I'll get a little agitated or something. That's always quite possible. It is just to set us in time, June 8th, 2022. And it's beautiful, yet another beautiful spring day here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Why do I have this need to set things all of a sudden in time and space? I don't know. I guess an effort in some ways to hang on. Hello, here we are. To mark. We are here at this moment. I was thinking when I was walking yesterday of how, beautiful and lush everything looks, and wishing, gosh, wouldn't it be wonderful if it was like this all the time? And then I thought, I wonder if, and I do think that this would be true. I wonder if it were always beautiful and always lush, if we would appreciate it as much as in reality it comes and it goes. And we're forced through a yearly cycle of, birth and growth, and then decline and seeming death, but then rebirth. And I really think that living in a temperate climate is so much better for your psyche, because it does remind you that life has this cycle. And it also makes you appreciate, right, I think, the various stages of it. That's what I decided, which is why I ain't ever moving someplace where the sun always shines and it never gets cold, because that seems to me to be sort of a false, I don't know. It's like living in you're kidding yourself. It's like getting cosmetic surgery, to make yourself look younger than you really are. Who are you kidding? I think I know why I'm in a subdued mood. This is subdued. I'm sort of in a contemplative state because I'm heading into this surgical procedure on Friday, and my mortality has been looking me in the face. By the way, speaking of that, so I'm having the surgery on Monday and on Friday, and I expected to be back here on Monday, talking to my sister, Susan, yesterday. She suggested that was really idiotic, and that the procedure I was having was serious enough that maybe I better let my body sort of heal. Technically, there's a 2-week period after it, where I'm not supposed to do certain things, move in certain ways, and but I didn't think that would impact, my ability to do the show. So I'm playing it by ear next week. All that is to say, I am doubting that I will be doing a show Monday. Or even Susan said Tuesday. She said, I know Tuesday, but I don't think you should be. So we'll see. Can we do that? Sort of play it by ear? I mean, I was going to compare myself to Fetterman. I mean, he's taken months. He's going to take a month off or more. But my procedure is only part of what his procedure was, and I didn't have a stroke. Getting old. Not fun, but it is this sort of incredible thing to live through. It really is. It is. It's interesting. So anyway, it is I keep trying to minimize this getting a pacemaker, but the reality is that they're going to cut me open. They're going to stick a device in my chest and a battery, and they're going to thread wires, I guess, into my heart. So just the fact that my heart is going to be, part of this situation, well, that's what it's about. That, maybe I should be a little less cavalier about it. I mean, I'm cavalier in one respect, and in the other, as I said, I've been thinking about mortality a lot. Boy, we're lucky in some ways to live when we do, because the reality is I would have been dead so many years ago, but for, medical science that we have available to us. I think of my father's father and my uncles and aunts who all died way before they would have if they lived just 20 years into the future, when what killed them could have been managed, dealt with, fixed, right? So in that respect, we're lucky. On the other hand, we're clearly being kept alive too long because there's so many people who are technically alive, but who, I don't know. Not really. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'll stop. I think I'll stop. I am, I'm also very anxious. I'm more anxious actually than about these hearings tomorrow evening. I started out being excited, and my excitement turned to just anxiety, and the more I read about it, and other people's opinions about it, the more anxious, of course, I am getting. There was a real buzz killer in the New York Times today online, written by a friend of mine. I'm going to break his neck. He's a Pittsburgher, Jacob Bacharach, smart as hell, really good writer, novelist. But he writes often about current events and where we are now. And he's so damn smart. I've told him this, that I follow him on Twitter and I don't even understand 90% of his tweets. He has said that that's why he tweets like he does, just to, I guess, toy with us. But he has written a piece that is just sobering as holy hell about the chances of these hearings, January 6th hearings, doing anything. And it's a guest essay in the opinion section of the, I don't know, it wasn't in the print paper, of the online. It's called The Anticlimax of the January 6th Hearings. And, the Times says that Jake writes about the convergence of politics and culture. And it's that ability to see clearly that intersection that informs his dispiriting point of view about the January 6th hearings having much of any effect. And I fear he's right. I mean, just, reading news pieces about it. The media, of course, given their habitual need to trip up Democrats' intent to do anything positive. I just here's some notes. This is in a regular article about the upcoming January 6th hearing. Here's how a sentence starts. And Democrats are up against the reality that the raw emotions in the aftermath of the attack have faded, even among voters who care about the facts. As attention is turned to Ukraine, gun violence, blah, blah, blah. And so it's true, I suppose. They're pointing out that, again, we have zero attention span, and that absolutely is because we live in this new era of constant bombardment of information. So for anybody to stay focused, including media, on one thing, or even to like this is more important than that. That is not the way media decides. It decides based on what will attract the most eyeballs, what will people, be wanting to talk about. And that's why you get, Johnny Depp as the lead story when the whole world is going up in smoke. So here's another line. It's an uphill battle at a time when polls show that voters' attention is focused elsewhere. On inflation, on rising coronavirus cases, record high gas prices. No, that reporter came up with a whole different list of why no one's going to give a damn. The other list was what? Ukraine, gun violence, which shows, it just shows there are so many very important, possibly extraordinarily important events and crises. And people feel like January 6th was a lifetime ago. They think they know everything that happened. They saw it on TV, okay? And now, because it's become politicized again, I'm sorry, I'm going to be all over the place here, but for so long, I have accused Republicans, and this is when they were actually sort of old-time conservative Republicans, not, neo-fascist white nationalists. I always accuse them of being shameless, of when Democrats are not. Democrats are filled with shame all the time. It's part of being a Democrat, wringing our hands in shame and guilt and, empathetic. It's what kills us. And it's what makes them so often successful, despite the fact that politically they really should not be. They hold views that are in opposition to the majority of Americans, and yet they know how to get Americans to keep them in power. And of course, the system which works in their behalf. So shamelessness, and Fox News, that's what I was trying to get to here. Fox News. Every news operation will be carrying these hearings live. Because that is what a responsible, reputable news organization would do. Fox doesn't care. Just like Republicans don't care. You're going to try to shame them? They're unshameable. One of the reasons they're so powerful. You could shame a Democrat 700 million times over before you could shame a Republican. And that weakens Democrats. So back to what Jacob Bacharach says. He says, you know, you would think that this public hearing of an actual attempt to overthrow the government of the United States of America right before our very eyes, televised as it happened, would make for a hell of a riveting hearing tomorrow night. But Jacob says, the reality is it may well be a dud. He's on to Americans, and he has I must admit, a rather jaundiced view of us. I can't imagine where he got that. But he says, you know, even if a few million Americans watch, the impact is probably going to be, it's hard to be minor. And he says this, the modern Democratic Party has not often shown itself to be capable of transcendent political showmanship. Boy, that's true. And then he says something that I hadn't thought. He says that this spectacle of the televised congressional hearing, which, if you know American history, has been, you know, I mean, my God, there was the, you know, Army McCarthy and the Kefauver hearings and Watergate and how consequential those things were. But he reminds us that as a genre, because as a entertainment or must-watch television genre, the congressional hearing has been in decline for a long, long time. Tell me about it. And then he goes on to remind us that think of how many times that we have been burned trying to have Donald Trump and his allies held accountable. Think. When you thought, you know, well, it's right out there in front of you. They're grifters, they're traitors, they're this, they're that. It's right out in front of you. He said, but think of all the times we have already failed in those attempts. The breathless anticipation of the Mueller report. That. The impeachment. And the next impeachment. Where'd those go? Acquittal. And as he says, this steady drip of petty crimes, gross corruptions out of Trump's circle. And none of them leading to an unambiguous and final guilty verdict. And then he tells us something we already know. Odds are nothing's going to change anybody's mind. Even sworn testimony at prime time, all of this. Because, well, first of all, we know the people whose minds we're trying to change are living in another universe. We don't speak, we might as well, the hearings might as well be in Swahili. Or the very people you need to reach will be watching Tucker Carlson on Fox News, which will not be carrying this thing that they need to see. And Jake points out that, for years, the Republicans have shown that they can do congressional hearings to great effect. And you know why? Because they're shameless. Excuse me, I didn't mean to. They're shameless. I give you Benghazi. They see hearings as a way to, in the Benghazi hearings, it was really the purpose of them was to besmirch Hillary Clinton, to take her down. And I don't know what you remember, but last time I looked, I think they did. And he says, yeah, sure. This is not, we're not in Whitewater times. We're not in Watergate times. We've moved on. People don't sit and watch television, even if it's a congressional hearing. And then here's the thing that made me just sick, because I suspect he's right about this. Because Democrats and the committee's few cooperating Republican members seem determined to conduct a sensible inquiry, the hearings ultimately promise an anticlimax. You see, because Democrats are serious. They play by the rules. They're going to lay this out. They're talking to rational people, honorable people, serious people, none of which the Republicans are. He says Democratic leaders don't fully appreciate that our society has moved on. It is extremely factional. It is obviously violent now. And it is not the same as it was even when the Watergate hearings were. Not at all. He says the calls to execute the Vice President of the United States, which we now know Trump agreed with, those calls to hang Mike Pence have proved insufficient to arouse the conservative movement and the Republican Party's remaining scruples. I don't know what scruples he's talking about there. They have some remaining. A terrifying, historical counterfactual is that the only thing that might have gotten enough of the GOP on board to matter would have been if the rioters had actually gone through with it. And even then, it's hard to be sure. He's saying, give it up, because these Republicans and their base do not want to save this democracy. They don't. And even if these guys on January 6th had actually managed to certify that Donald Trump had won the election, even then, it's unclear that the Republicans would have said, oh my, well, that's just a bit too much. No. So I think what he's saying is we're further gone than you want to believe. Further gone. So, yeah, we can, seditious conspiracy. So they'll get some Proud Boys, maybe. They'll get some these other idiots who were the soldiers, the warriors, in this plot. It's quite clear it was a plot, pretty damn carefully laid out plot. So those guys might end up, although everything I read says that proving seditious conspiracy is extremely difficult. So chances are they'll get off too. I have to say, and then I was thinking, Susan said something that wasn't true yesterday. She said the hearing would then go on Friday. And it's not, no, there's tonight. There is, I believe, Monday starting at 10 a.m., not prime time. And then the rest of the schedule is unclear. It is not solid. But the final thing will be, again, prime time. But here's something else that's clicking in the back of my head. You know what else is coming down in the next few weeks? The Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade. Not a leaked draft, but their actual opinion. And I wouldn't put it past this, seeing how far things have gone, to have the Democrats set up, a primetime hearing, let's say, to finish all this off in 2 weeks. And that last one is going to really focus on Trump and his criminality here. And to have the Supreme Court put out its Roe v. Wade rulings that day and blow the hearing right out of the water. Watch for that. That could happen. I think we're in trouble. I do. There's no way. Hey, I've got some updates just showing how much we're in trouble. I have updates on things. Yesterday, I shared a horrific story of a 2-year-old finding a loaded Glock, and a 2-year-old shooting his father dead. Okay? That was in Florida. And then today, out of Florida, I'll tell you, what a state. Ron DeSantis, way to go. He's perfect for Florida. Another child killed, and the phrase child killer, you need to sort of turn your head around. We think of a child killer meaning somebody who kills children. But increasingly now in America, a child killer is a child who kills. Because, well, they can. And there's a story out of Florida today. I'm just saying that is the follow-up of an 8-year-old girl. She goes with her mom to some outdoor event. Her mother starts arguing with another woman at the event. Her mother shoves the other woman, or physically in some way does something to her. The other woman shoves back. I don't know if these are shoves or hits, but things get physical. The mother, because, well, I don't know, last time you engaged in a boxing match, if you're holding a purse, it can get in the way. So the mother, here, hold this, babe, hands her purse to her daughter, her 10-year-old daughter, and goes back to the fight. And the 10-year-old daughter, knowing her mom well, knowing her mom has a gun in her purse, the 10-year-old opens the purse, takes the gun out, and kills the woman her mother is fighting. Kills her. And says, actually, her mother screams, "You shot the lady!" And the girl says to the dead woman, "You shouldn't have messed with my mama." Okay. So there you have it. That's the latest child killer out of Florida. And then, I guess this is sort of back to Florida too, isn't it? It's the Disney thing. Now, this is a little lighter. We were talking about how this woman, this idiot who invited people to her wedding. This is the woman and her fiance who are totally captivated by everything Disney. They've been Disneyfied. I mean, there's apparently people who are just, if they could, I think they'd, have plastic surgery to get Mickey Mouse ears in place of their own. It's just amazing how some people, whatever people are. So this is something that, and the woman, just in case you didn't hear yesterday's show, the woman's wedding guests are fuming because she invited them to her Disney-themed wedding and didn't feed them. There was no food, no bar, no nothing. And the reason was she had only a certain budget. And she could either have food for her guests or Mickey and Minnie Mouse show up for a half hour to take pictures with the bride and groom. And they, of course, went for Mickey and Minnie and screw the guests. Okay. So we were talking about that a little bit. And lo and behold, today, another Disney and proposal and wedding kind of a story. This one at Disneyland Paris. I was saying how this proposal business is getting, to me, has gotten out of hand. Seems to me it's a very private moment, and it's become now a production number. But this is unbelievable. This some poor schmo wanted to propose to the love of his life at Disneyland Paris because he and his intended also are Disneyfied. I mean, everything Disney is their idea of wondrousness. Early on in the relationship, he had given his girlfriend a rose in a glass dome, similar to the enchanted rose in Beauty and the Beast. They have together watched every Disney film, many, many times. And he said it was a no-brainer where he would propose. And so he gets her up on a stage in front of Sleeping Beauty's castle. And he goes down on one knee and he pulls the ring from his pocket. And he pops the question. And as he pops the question, a Disneyland employee wearing Mickey Mouse ears grabs the ring from his hand and forces the two off the stage and tells them, here, you do that here. It's even better. Now, all of this was caught on camera because, of course, the guy had, before he did his proposal production, had handed his phone to some unsuspecting soul and said, here, would you just video this? So apparently this Disney, the guy with the ears, ruining this important moment, has stoked incredible online anger against Disney. You know, I give up. So there are people who are angry about something like this, who you cannot rouse to concern, let alone anger, in an attempt to overthrow the government. Which is why screwed. Seriously screwed. I mean, I can't even quite imagine. I keep saying things like that. It's over. We're done. Blah, 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 blah. I do think that. I do. I can't imagine, though, how it's going to unfold. I can't imagine. I mean, we are a nation that is not a our name is a joke now. The United States? Ha! But I mean, the United States has always been a sort of clamorous, disunited union from its very beginnings. And it's why I want to share this with you. This I like. This I found in the New York Times today in the food section. So you can relax, right? It's about whiskey, and it's about Pennsylvania. Because when you think whiskey, you think Pennsylvania, if you know anything about whiskey. And it's a full page, and the big headline is Pennsylvania's past is steeped in whiskey. And I learned some stuff in here that, first of all, I learned, Wiggle whiskey, which is in the Strip District. I often wondered about that name, Wiggle whiskey. I thought it was a cute name, but I wondered about it. And this article explains it for me. There was a guy named Philip Wiggle. And he was one of the early settlers in these here parts. And Philip Wiggle was one of the major leaders and combatants in what is historically known as the Whiskey Rebellion. So that makes sense. Now, Wiggle whiskey. So the article explained that to me. It also explained that the whiskey that came out of these parts was unique. And it was unique because of what went into it. It was called, by the way, Old Monongahela. Uh-huh. And if you think, I mean, no, it was considered like the, whoa, Old Monongahela. And to show how important Old Monongahela was, it actually gets a shout out by Herman Melville in Moby Dick. I'll read you the line. "'Tis July's immortal 4th. All fountains must run wine today. Would now it were old Orleans whiskey, or old Ohio, or unspeakable old Monongahela." That was written in 1851. Old Monongahela was still considered like, whoa, the go-to whiskey, peppery stuff. And because it was unlike almost every other whiskey made in America, because it used rye, barley, but unlike almost all other whiskey, not a single kernel of corn. So it was cornless Monongahela whiskey. And whiskey's making a comeback. There are now nearly 50 distilleries operating in the state, most of them right around here and also around Philadelphia. But the reason whiskey was so important and the Whiskey Rebellion happened, in case you didn't know, because it involves, I mean, the guy that was the bad guy in the Whiskey Rebellion was Alexander Hamilton. Yeah, now enjoying, having a iconic Broadway musical in his name. But man, the Whiskey Rebellion boys hated his guts because he was the Treasury Secretary. And it was his job to collect the tax to help fuel the government, this new government of the United States of America. And there was a tax on whiskey. Now, here's something else I learned in this article. So it's the 1700s, let's say, and you're thinking, I'll tell you what, I think I'm going across those Appalachians and I'm going to settle west of there. And I've heard it's, beautiful and yada, yada, yada. It's going to be rough, but we're heading over there. And anyone who did that back in that day had a problem regarding money. Because actual money, hard currency, just wasn't around. It was scarce. So whiskey, often in these here parts, served as currency. Here's a guy who knows this stuff. Once you went west or south, currency was pretty much useless, especially during the Revolution. I mean, if you had Maryland dollars or Massachusetts dollars, good luck spending them anywhere but Maryland and Massachusetts. There was no uniform national currency, and out in the hinterlands, forget about it. So in these parts, whiskey served that purpose. And so when President George Washington, trying to pay the huge debt that the Revolutionary War had incurred, turned to Alexander Hamilton, his Treasury Secretary, and said, we got to get some money from somewhere. Well, if you were going to tax the wealth of the people around here, you had to tax the whiskey. And so Hamilton put a tax on whiskey, and all hell broke loose. Philip Wiggle went berserk. And he wasn't alone. And Wiggle and the others, as you know, rose up in a violent, they were like the Proud Boys of 1792. I don't know. 1794, actually. 1794 is when Washington, the first president of the United States, had to send troops, sent the military out here to put down this rebellion. And Alexander Hamilton was the head of that military effort. They arrested Wiggle. Yep. They arrested a bunch of other folks too. And they put down the rebellion. But the enmity, the hatred of this new federal government, that stayed. And you know what? It's still here. Where Philip Wiggle was, that's now Trump country. It never left. From 1790 to now, this anger about taxation, about supporting this federal government. It's, just, sometimes remembering that our history has often been violent, and there have been insurrections, Whiskey Rebellion, and Philip Wiggle. And for even more than a century afterwards, it was not unusual if you went into a tavern around these parts to find a portrait of Alexander Hamilton hanging upside down. People would have them in their homes as well. Now, so I don't know if you know this, but I mean, so right around here, the whiskey here was the whiskey. Rye, which is the base of it, grows really well in Western Pennsylvania. And the fact is you think of now, well, Kentucky bourbon. It was nowhere near what was going on here. So I guess the whole thing of this article is that it's making a comeback. Whiskey. And there's other stuff in here about a tour you can do of whiskeys. And there's shout outs to a lot of places around here, including Mingo Creek, Craft Distillers, Wiggle, and others. So just how's that for a little bit of, nice, informative distraction? And I have a caller, I find. Hello? Well, maybe. Hello.
Hello. Hi there.
Hi. Hi.
Yeah, I like whiskey. But
I know.
First of all, I want to thank you for your tweet the other day showing the pro-life guy with the umbrella that you shared with us. That's perfect. Anybody does.
Oh, yeah, it's a guy. No, I do. It's a cartoon. And it's a guy who is a Republican, I guess. And it's raining, and he's standing in front of a pregnant woman and her her boy. And he's very graciously holding the umbrella over the woman's huge belly, which holds an unborn fetus. And the woman's being drenched, and the child she's holding by the hand is being drenched. So that's the concern of the Republicans. Not the woman, not the living child, but the unseen floating in her amniotic fluid in her belly. Yeah. It's a good one.
It pretty much says it all pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And people who don't get it, they're losers anyway. But which is one of the things that my wife and I have been doing, and I can't sit down the whole time, but watching the George Carlin HBO documentary. I don't know if
Oh yes, I watched the first 2 hours. Yeah, really.
And I thought when what he had to say in the early '90s, when he kind of like came back strong and talking about how much we it's anti-woman is what he said, and he went on about how I'm sorry, we got to protect you from as soon as you're born, but prenatal, Head Start, free, school lunches, welfare, you're screwed. And he said, but until you get a certain age, and then the Army wants you. And then we raise you live babies to become dead soldiers. He was just, it was amazing what he was saying then, but because it really applies to today. If somebody was watching that now and didn't know who he was or when this was being recorded, they might have thought it was going on because he was talking about, the pesky, how pesky our population is.
Well, what does it tell you though, if that's true? If that humor and what he's saying, it could be contemporary, could be, he could have done that right now. It shows you that we really haven't moved.
No.
We think we made progress. Apparently we have not.
But then he's talking, maybe the solution is the Earth should just shake us off with, maybe create a virus. This is 30 years ago, and he would just say, and I think maybe the Earth was trying to do that. But the big takeaway I got was, okay, as he got to be 60, and then maybe I'm finding that he's right. It's better to deal with individuals, but not groups. It's because, and also you can get angry and everything, but at the same time, when you're on your own, you've got to have peace within yourself. And he was a very happy person privately, but outwardly, when what we saw. Yeah. And I have to say that my biggest turnaround was the election, or Donald Trump becoming president, because as I became disgusted with humanity, just like he did, like Carlin did. But over the few years, I just figured, what, that's out of my control, and I just got to be a nicer person and a better, example in front of others, because we have such terrible examples in leadership right now, and you can only do that in your own little circle. So anyway, I just thought the George Carlin thing was wonderful, and I appreciate the tweet, and good luck tomorrow, Friday.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Roger.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It happens a lot, and you'll be fine. It'll be good.
I know it happens a lot. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye. Yeah. I've had so many surgeries. You can't find 2 square inches of area on any part of my body that doesn't have some scar where they cut into me. I just am, yeah. And the thing is, that's why I have I think the more I've dealt with, and my feelings of vulnerability within the healthcare system as it exists in this country. I don't, while I feel safe with, my surgeon, it's just unsettling. I don't like to be in any that vulnerable. And I don't like to be, general anesthesia. Jesus, I hate it. It's like dying. It's, you're there 1 minute and then. But anyway, yeah, I'm not actively wringing my hands. I'm just, I'm aware of unease. I appreciate all of your good wishes. Oh, I forgot. I'm doing a show here. Here's something that surprised me. I was reading an obituary for Sigmund Freud's granddaughter. I was friend sent it to me last night, and God damn it, stop it! I know, ignore. I keep saying ignore. Go away. Excuse me. Sorry, screaming. You know, you do that too, right? Anyway, his last surviving grandchild, Sophie Freud, who went into the family business. I mean, she was in that sphere, although she argued against psychoanalysis. But she knew him very well, and got out of Vienna just in time, as he did. And I guess the thing that surprised me in it, because I knew he had this granddaughter who argued, she said psychoanalysis was a narcissistic indulgence, which is true. I mean, it is true. Of course it is. First of all, only rich people can do it, because a real psychoanalysis is you go every day, 5 days a week, and lie on this psychoanalyst couch and talk about yourself. If that ain't a narcissistic indulgence, I'd like to know what is. So she wait, what am I looking for? Well, here's a quote that she gave to a Canadian. She was on in a film, and this is, I think, a little over the top. She said, "In my eyes, both Adolf Hitler and my grandfather were false prophets of the 20th century." Jeez. I mean, come on. I mean, Freud. I mean, come on. Sophie. It's a little much. She said, because they both had this incredible, huge ego and ambition, and tried to convince others that they had the one and only truth. And I mean, I understand that, but you can't. She said her grandfather never could be wrong. Well, yeah, I know lots of guys like that. Anyway, so she married and had children, and it turns out that one of her children says right here that she survived by a daughter who's a novelist and a son who teaches psychology at Carnegie Mellon University. Did you know that Sigmund Freud's great-grandfather lives here in Pittsburgh? I did not know that. Great-grandson. His great-grandfather that'd be something. His great-grandson. It teaches at CMU, psychology and economics, I just want to say. And his name ain't Freud because she married a guy named Lowenstein. So George Lowenstein is now mourning the loss of his mom, Sigmund Freud's granddaughter. I just wanted to say that because, that always, I didn't know. And there's something else that I was surprised at, and if anybody can help me with it, and then we're out of time. I see here that the more than 90 women who say they were sexually assaulted by that son of a bitch Dr. Lawrence Nasser for the gymnastics are now planning on filing lawsuits against the FBI. Because the FBI really screwed up their case. And, in fact, decided not to prosecute. And they then decided not to prosecute the two former FBI agents. The Justice Department did not prosecute two former FBI agents who bungled the investigation in 2015, which, if they hadn't bungled it, had taken it seriously, these allegations, you would have had a lot fewer victims than we got now. So, but what surprised me is that I didn't know you could sue the FBI. Isn't that like suing the U.S. government? What am I not getting here? I mean, because if you could sue the government, we'd be suing them all the time. I mean, I right now could think of about 20 suits right now that I would like to bring. But it isn't by virtue of the FBI being part of the Department of Justice, which is part of the government. You mean a citizen can sue them? I know I'm obviously incorrect here, or I'm missing something, but that's the question that I had when I saw that, and I'm leaving it in your lap because I don't know. But that's it for me, and I'll be back tomorrow. And okay, another beautiful day. Enjoy.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.